You've tried setting your alarm for 5 a.m. Maybe you've done it dozens of times. You buy the fancy alarm clock that simulates sunrise, you put your phone across the room so you have to physically get up to turn it off, you go to bed telling yourself that tomorrow is the day you finally become one of those people. And then the alarm goes off, and something happens inside your brain that overrides every single intention you had the night before. You slam that snooze button like it personally offended you, and you wake up an hour later feeling guilty, groggy, and convinced that you just lack the discipline that morning people seem to have in abundance. But here's what nobody is telling you. The reason you're struggling with mornings has almost nothing to do with willpower. Not even a little bit. And the moment you understand what's actually going on inside your body, the whole story changes completely. Let's start with something called your chronotype. This is essentially your biological clock preference, and it is not a character trait. It is not a reflection of your work ethic or your ambition. It is a genuine, measurable biological reality that is largely determined by your genetics. Researchers have identified specific genes that influence when your body naturally wants to sleep and wake, and these genes vary significantly from person to person. Some people genuinely have a biology that pushes their peak alertness and energy into the morning hours. Others have a biology that is wired for the afternoon or evening. Scientists actually classify these patterns, and studies have found that somewhere between 15 and 30% of the population falls into what researchers call the evening chronotype, meaning their biology genuinely functions optimally later in the day. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, and honestly a little bit infuriating. The standard 9 to 5 world was essentially designed around morning chronotypes, school start times, traditional work schedules, the cultural messaging that early risers are more productive and morally superior somehow. All of it stacks the deck against people whose biology simply runs on a different clock. There is actually a term researchers use called social jet lag, and it describes exactly this problem. When your natural sleep and wake times are forced to misalign with your social and professional obligations, your body experiences something very similar to what happens when you fly across multiple time zones. Except you are doing it every single week, and then somehow expecting yourself to function at full capacity while running on a biological mismatch. But wait, before you use this as a reason to never set an early alarm again, there is an important layer to this conversation that most people skip over entirely. Your chronotype is not completely fixed. Yes, genetics plays a significant role, but your behavior, your environment, and something called sleep pressure and light exposure can meaningfully shift when your body feels ready to sleep and wake up. This is where the actual opportunity lives, and this is where most morning routine advice gets it completely wrong. The biggest mistake people make when they try to become morning people is that they only focus on the wake-up side of the equation. They set an earlier alarm without adjusting when they go to sleep, which means they are simply reducing the amount of sleep they get, and then wondering why mornings feel like torture. Sleep deprivation and a difficult chronotype are two completely different problems, but they feel identical when you are living through them. The grogginess, the inability to focus, the desperate craving to stay in bed, those experiences happen both when you are fighting your chronotype and when you are just chronically underslept. Most people trying to force early mornings are actually dealing with both at the same time. Here's what the research actually supports if you want to shift your wake time earlier. The most powerful tool available to you is morning light exposure. Your brain has a master clock located in a region called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and this clock is exquisitely sensitive to light signals, particularly in the morning hours. When bright light hits your eyes shortly after waking, it sends a powerful signal to your brain that essentially anchors your wake time. Do this consistently, and your brain gradually begins preparing your body to feel alert at that time. Do it for long enough, and your entire sleep cycle begins to shift forward. This is not a motivational hack. This is basic neuroscience working in your favor. The flip side of this is what you are probably doing in the evening without realizing it. Artificial light, especially the blue wavelength light that comes from phones, tablets, and laptops, suppresses a hormone called melatonin. Melatonin is the signal your brain uses to initiate the process of falling asleep. When you are scrolling your phone at 10 or 11 at night, you are chemically delaying your own sleep onset, which pushes your entire sleep cycle later, which makes waking up earlier feel genuinely impossible. You are not lazy. You are chemically preventing your own sleep system from doing its job. There is also a piece of this puzzle that almost never gets talked about in morning routine content, and that is sleep momentum. The feeling of grogginess right after waking up, even after sufficient sleep, is actually a real phenomenon called sleep inertia. Your brain does not go from completely asleep to fully functional in a matter of seconds. There is a transition period that can last anywhere from a few minutes to 30 or 40 minutes for some people, during which your cognitive performance and physical alertness are genuinely impaired. Here's the key insight, though. Sleep inertia is significantly worse when you are woken up in the middle of a deep sleep cycle compared to when you wake up during lighter sleep stages. This is why alarm timing can matter more than most people realize, and why some people feel reasonably okay when they wake up naturally, but absolutely destroyed when their alarm forces them awake 20 minutes earlier. So what does all of this actually mean for you practically? First, stop framing this as a willpower problem. That framing is both inaccurate and counterproductive because it makes you feel like a personal failure, when what is actually happening is a biology and environment mismatch. Second, if you genuinely need or want to shift your wake time earlier, do it gradually. Research suggests that shifting your sleep schedule by 15 to 30 minutes every few days is far more effective and sustainable than trying to make a dramatic jump all at once. Your biology responds to gradual pressure much better than sudden demands. Third, treat morning light like it is medicine because functionally it kind of is. Get outside within 30 minutes of waking up if you can, or sit near a window with bright, natural light. Even on cloudy days, outdoor light is significantly brighter than typical indoor lighting and is much more effective at anchoring your circadian rhythm. Fourth, create what researchers sometimes call a wind-down buffer in the evenings. This is not about eliminating screens entirely necessarily, though that helps. It is about reducing stimulation and light intensity in the hour or two before bed so your melatonin system can actually do its job. And fifth, and this one might be the most important thing you hear in this entire video, consider whether you actually need to be a morning person, or whether you have internalized a cultural message that equates early rising with virtue or success. Some of the most productive, creative, and successful people in history have been committed night owls. The research on productivity does not support the idea that morning people are inherently more effective. What matters for performance is alignment between your biology and your schedule as much as possible, not conforming to an arbitrary standard about what time your alarm goes off. Now, if your job or your family genuinely requires you to be functional in the early morning hours, then the strategies we talked about are genuinely worth implementing. Gradual schedule shifting, consistent morning light, evening light reduction, and sustainable sleep duration are all backed by solid science, and they can make a real difference over time. But if you are punishing yourself every morning because some podcast told you that waking up at 5 a.m. is the secret to success, and your body is screaming otherwise, maybe the more powerful move is understanding your own biology well enough to work with it rather than against it. The goal has never been to wake up at a specific time. The goal is to have enough energy, focus, and presence to actually live your life well. Sometimes that means shifting your habits. Sometimes it means giving yourself permission to stop fighting your own neuroscience. Your chronotype is not your destiny, but it is real, it is worth understanding, and it is definitely not a character flaw. If this video changed how you think about your mornings, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to go deeper on building habits that actually match your biology, the next video is waiting for you right now.